Hi everyone and welcome to this video. In this video, we are going to talk about the topic of getting out of your maze and getting to your cheese. Are you someone who's lost in some aspect of your life in your own maze? Or you are on your way to finding your cheese? Regardless of your situation, in order to find your cheese, you have to make some changes, whether that's in terms of methodology or your mindset. Let's follow the story of Hem and Haw, the two little dwarfs, on their journey in getting out of the maze and finally getting to their cheese. Once upon a time, in a distant land, there lived four little friends. Among them were two little mice named Sniff and Scurry, and two dwarfs named Hem and Haw. They spent their days scouring through the maze in search of the delicious cheese that excited them so much. The maze was a series of complex corridors and chambers, some containing sweet-smelling cheese, others being dark corners and dead ends. One day, the four friends found their favorite cheese at Cheese Station C, at the end of a corridor. Thereafter, every day, they would go to Cheese Station C to enjoy more delicious cheese. Before long, Hem and Haw settled down at Cheese Station C. They didn't know where the cheese came from or who put it there. They happily assumed it would always be there. Then, one day, the cheese was gone. Upon seeing the missing cheese, Sniff and Scurry immediately set off to find new cheese. However, Hem and Haw stood there in shock. Their cheese was gone. How could this be? Nobody had warned them. No, such a thing couldn't possibly happen. They spent days in turmoil over the lost cheese. Finally, Haw realized that Sniff and Scurry had already left Cheese Station C to find new cheese. He decided to do like the little mice and search for new cheese. Sometimes things change, and they never be the same again. Haw said this to his companion. It seemed the situation has changed now. Life moves on, and we should move with it. With that, Haw left. Days later, Haw returned to Cheese Station C with some new cheese he had found and shared them with Hem. But Hem thought he wouldn't like this new type of cheese. It wasn't the cheese he was familiar with. He still wanted his old cheese back. So reluctantly, Haw left alone once more in search of more new cheese. That was the last time Hem saw his good friend Haw. For several days, Hem paced back and forth at Cheese Station C, restless and frustrated. He still wanted every day for the cheese to appear, unwilling to accept his futile hope. He was sure that if he just waited long enough, the cheese would come back, but it never did. And Haw never came back either. As Hem paced, he searched his mind for answers. At first, he told himself, Haw will come back. He'll be back soon. And then everything will go back to normal. But as time went on, Haw didn't return. With time, Hem became more irritable, his thoughts drifting in a new direction. He's forgotten about me. He's hiding, not wanting to see me. He must have done it on purpose. How could my good friend betray me like this? This last thought enraged Hem, and the more he thought about it, the angrier he got. He was angry that Haw had left him alone, angry that his beloved cheese has disappeared. What infuriated him the most was that it seemed like nothing he did could change the situation. Finally, he stopped, shouting in anger, "This isn't fair! The constant pacing and frustration exhausted Ham, so he slumped into his favorite armchair, starting to worry. What if Haw got lost? What if he got hurt? Or something worse had happened? Ham put his anger aside, worried about his good friend, concerned that Haw might have encountered something terrible. After a while, a new question arose in his mind. He no longer wondered why Haw didn't come back, but instead pondered, why didn't I go with him? If he had gone with Haw, Ham thought, things might have been different. Maybe Haw wouldn't have gone lost. Maybe he wouldn't have encountered anything terrible. Maybe they'd be enjoying cheese together now. Why hadn't he changed like his friend when the cheese changed? Why hadn't he left with Haw? Question gnawed at him like a little mouse nibbling on a piece of cheese. At this point, Ham realized he was getting very hungry. He stood up from his armchair and started pacing again. However, he stumbled over something on the floor. Bending down, Ham picked it up and blew off the dust. He remembered this object. It was an old chisel. Ham vividly recalled the day he held this chisel, and Haw struck it with a hammer until they made a huge hole on the wall of Cheese Station C and found new cheese. He could almost hear the echoes of the hammer and chisel bouncing off the walls of Cheese Station C. Bang, bang, bang! Ham searched the ground around him and finally found a hammer they had used. He also blew the dust off the hammer. Suddenly, he realized it had been such a long time since he and Haw had searched for cheese together. He missed his good friend. He also started to worry. All this time, he had been waiting for more cheese to appear, waiting for Haw to return. But there was still no cheese, nor any sign of Haw. He needed to make a change. He couldn't keep on waiting at home in vain. He needed to leave his house, enter the maze, and search for new cheese. Ham scoured the house, finding his running shoes. He put them on. Everything was just like when he and Haw first searched for cheese. As he tied his shoelaces, he carefully assessed the situation as he knew it. He knew he had to search for more cheese or he would starve. He knew the maze was a dangerous place, filled with many dark corners and dead ends. So he had to be extra careful and cautious. He also knew that whether he could get out of the situation, find more cheese, and survive depended entirely on himself. He could only rely on his own strength. He wrote all this down on a piece of paper, carefully putting the note in his pocket so he wouldn't forget. Realizing the reality, Ham felt a little reassured. At least he knew the actual situation now. Ham looked at the hammer and chisel. Perhaps they could be useful in his journey, helping him explore deeper into the maze. Ham picked up these tools and put them in a bag, slinging it over his shoulder. With the note of reality and the sturdy hammer and chisel, Ham was ready, prepared to enter the maze and embark on a new adventure.